we're going to lose our jobs. AI is not the threat. You're not going to lose your job to AI. It's leadership's perception of what AI can do.
What
right?
if the key to success isn't about doing more, but giving up the right things?
Okay.
We're trained to, do more hustle, more commitment, more work, more hours, more money, more.
That's the American way.
Right. But what if you give up the right things, right? What does that mean? What does that make room for that matters more to you?
At their new company, they only had 3 holidays. They only got 2 weeks of vacation, all these things. And so I tried to ask you to make sure you looked at the total compensation package, right? But they want the shiny thing, just the salary, which only worked out to be about like $650 more. It's okay to not have to impress people, causing you to take on more things than your body, your mind, can handle. Don't worry about that. And I think just focusing on what matters, which can change over time. There are times in life where, work matters. It might be more important at the moment, right? Other times, when you have a sick parent or a child that needs you to help go to college or whatever, then you have to choose that. But internally, especially as a business owner, you deal with the costs privately, that are hitting you. And that then creates loneliness, and it creates, this idea that the pressure you always have to be on. You always have to have all the answers, right? And that weighs on you. So this was hitting us. And meanwhile, again, we're personally liable for this 10-year office lease, that was costing us, tens of thousands a month at this point for this space. And we're like, what do we do? I mean, receivables are low, cash is running out, and so we had to figure out a way out. Then you have misguided sacrifices, right? So, which again, these are the ones that we think will lead to success, right? You don't always realize that there's no return for it. There's no, they drain you of all your energy and all your thought processes with no meaningful return. And in there, he talks about in strategy, you have to know what to say no to. And I think that's the same thing in our personal lives, and when making sacrifices. But a lot of people make short-term emotional decisions at the time they make a sacrifice, and later then, like you said, might regret it.
You're listening to Time Compass, a compass for leaders navigating uncharted waters. Time Compass is where visionaries, thinkers, and changemakers come to share the stories and tools that shape their path. Hosted by me, Bud Leiser, each episode captures the transformative conversations rooted in personal growth, business wisdom, and conscious leadership. Whether you're scaling a company, pivoting your purpose, or seeking clarity in chaos, this podcast offers grounded insight and expansive thinking to guide you forward.
Well, fantastic, everybody. Welcome back to the Time Compass Show. Today, we're joined by David Kalinowski, an entrepreneur, speaker, and the co-founder of Proactive Worldwide, a strategic intelligence firm that he's been building for 30 years. David has spent his career working alongside Fortune 500 leaders as they navigate uncertainty, tough investment decisions, and high-stakes trade-offs across industries around the world. His journey through growth, setbacks, and reinvention led him to ask a deeper question about success and sacrifice, which inspired his best-selling book, The Sacrifice Paradox: How to Navigate Life's Choices and Trade-offs. Today, David is here to share the real lessons learned along the way and the insights that come from choosing trade-offs intentionally rather than by accident. Welcome to the show, David, and special congratulations on your 30-year anniversary for your business.
First, thank you for inviting me as a guest. I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for that. It's been about 70,000 hours of my life total in this field, but yes, 27 years old at the time I started, Proactive with my then business partner, and it goes by in a blink.
It does, right? The days are long, but the years are short.
Yeah.
70,000 hours. Who's counting?
Yeah, not me.
Well, that's fantastic. Before we dive into some of your past, give us a quick overview of what your company actually does and who should use it.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So we specialize in capturing typically, non-published insights to provide our clients, which are mostly Fortune 500 or Global 1000 firms, to better prepare and be out in front of what's next. Doing market or competitive intelligence work to get unique, insights and implications on competitors, suppliers, customers, partners, regulatory bodies, whatever knowledge they need to capture to fill the gaps a little bit to inform often strategic investment decisions. So they'll retain us, whether it's in pharmaceuticals, healthcare, financial services, consumer industrial goods, wide variety of different verticals to really augment their own knowledge base. A lot of times companies get pretty blindsided by what's happening in the external world, and they're very focused on what's going on inside their own organizations and
Mm.
don't always track and monitor the external environment. So we help to avoid surprises. We help to improve their short and long-term planning. We ultimately help them to win and gain a unique competitive advantage.
Okay. That's very cool. That's very cool. What is for example, what is the sweet spot or minimum size that a client should be contacting you? I'm assuming this is not for a small mom and pop operation. This is for.
No, not typically, although we have had some small startups that had some working capital and have retained us to look at the market opportunity, to size a market and see where the trends are and understand what B2B customers might want. So some sentiment type of studies or voice of customer studies. But most of our folks are, $100 million type companies or higher. But increasingly, we're finding that small, medium-sized businesses do have competitors and they do have a need. Our engagements tend to start at least around, $10,000, but we've done, $1 million studies before that would involve significant global assessments, looking at everything from companies, strategies to distribution to finances to, their go-to-market strategy, who they're going after and how they target them, what their pitch is, their differentiation strategy, all those different elements. And really, we combine what's in print with primary research. So talking to people at our clients' competitors, their partners, their suppliers, former employees, and pretty much anybody that has knowledge on whatever topic they're looking for. And of course, you have to do so legally and ethically. But there are people who tell you, get lost. Who are you? And why do you want this? I'm not going to tell you anything, but that's the nature of our business.
Okay. Very cool.
We also do a lot of wargaming too, which is really interesting, linking that knowledge to them role playing the competition so that you can ultimately then sit in their skins and engage in moves and counter moves and scenario planning before you hit the enter button. So then you could maybe adjust your strategy based on what you think the competition might do in reaction to you, say, launching a new product.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, you just got my wheels spinning here, so I'm going to go a bit off topic. Do you ever do this on a recruiting side? I just bring this up because I was on a call the other day and, he wants to hire some salespeople, and I feel like he didn't have an understanding of what his competitors are offering and that his offer is a little low or a little bit wonky. Do you guys ever get involved with that or not really?
We do from the standpoint of understanding benchmarking, right? In this case, how would a recruiter, what's their pricing philosophy or the strategy? Is it, they want 10 grand up front and then they have a smaller success fee, or is it nothing up front and then it's 24% of the first year salary of whoever they hire? What are the terms and conditions look like? Do they do it all in house? Do they have a team of external folks to do the recruiting? Understanding their process.
Do you help companies? I know you guys it sounded like you guys are very external focused. What are the competitors doing? What are the threats, et cetera? Does that extend to what they need to be doing to attract talent, like their salaries that they should be giving, the bonuses they should be giving, or
it can link back to then understanding how they use that knowledge now. And so we'll run a workshop internally to think about their readiness and how that assess their own internal, kind of do an internal audit on that topic and then see where the gaps exist. So we can see if you kind of plot where are they leading, where are they lagging, where are they at parity with others on a variety of different factors. Sure.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. I just bring that up because, that could be helpful to my client. He's not ready for you guys, but I just wanted to see if you guys do.
I appreciate that.
That's cool. Awesome. So I want to talk about a couple things. You have a story we've talked about a little bit before about when you were a new dad and a new president came into your company. You want to tell our audience about that?
So when we got started, I worked with my former business partner, Gary. He had since retired, and so I bought out his shares a few years back, and so I now own 100% of the company. But we both worked with a small boutique consulting firm, kind of went up the ranks together, both as researchers and analysts and project managers, and ultimately into sales and business development, generating revenue. Really had no intention to leave. Things were going pretty well. And this individual, smart guy, he was, running a small business himself, former Accenture guy. And he decided to bring in a new person to run his company. And maybe later he realized it wasn't the right decision. person knew nothing about our industry, nothing about our processes, nothing about our service offerings, nothing about the culture and the environment or the clients. But
Did he have an MBA? Is that why he was brought in?
yeah, yeah,
The classic
maybe he had a
MBA
PhD
story.
too. I don't know, but yeah, but it was interesting because it's like, okay, we'll give him a shot. Obviously there's something there,
Mm,
that caused them to say, hey, maybe this person could help take my business to the next level. And rather than learning more and more, the person within several months was already trying to bring in his buddies who ran sales at other companies and did other types of things, ran operations. At the time, Gary and I really were the two kind of rising stars, if you will. We were producers. We were getting stuff done. We were generating revenue. Came along one day, 2 weeks after I had my first son in August of '95, and pretty much said, "Hey, we're gonna let you go." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm hitting my goals. I'm cranking. I've been here
right.
5 years, and it's like I just had a baby. Well, I mean, I did. My ex-wife had the baby, right? But I contributed a little bit. It's like, "What are you talking about? I won't have insurance. I won't have." It's like, "Oh, that's just what we're gonna do," and it was crazy. So I left, and lo and behold, right after that, about the same thing was about ready to happen to Gary. Because what they were doing, they were trying to put us both in the same territory,
Mm,
narrowing the client base. They were doing everything they can to set us up to fail, right?
right.
Maybe thinking we'd leave. So anyway, fast forward a couple weeks there, and Gary comes on over to a house that I was renting at the time, '95, and we're sitting out in the backyard at some cheap green plastic patio furniture. You might know the kind I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
And he goes, "You know what? I think we should do this." I'm like, I don't know. I said, like, I got responsibilities now. I got a baby. I got to get something stable and secure, and I got to go get another income." And so we talked for a while, and he got up and said, "You know what? Well, I'm going to do this. I like you to join me in it, and but I'm going to make this happen." So by the time he got home, he had an answering machine message, and back then we had answering machines. We didn't have voicemail.
Yeah.
Uh, Saying, I told him, "You know what, I'm in. Let's do it." And so then I had to go tell my wife at the time that, "Hey, listen, we're starting a business." It's like, what? But you know, it was a quick movement. So quickly got things
Well, let me
incorporated.
jump in here.
Yeah, please, yeah,
From the moment, how long did this take to unravel? So you were at this company, you were a top producer, you'd been at the company 5 years. I remember picking up on that. He
yeah,
brought in his new president,
yeah.
MBA specialist, whatever.
So that was probably
And then
September,
how long
and
did
then
it take for
by
them to unwind your position? And then how long from that moment to the moment you decided to join Gary and start a business?
from the time he came in, it was just matter of months before
Hmm.
we were exited, and it was probably within a month that we started our business. We had to move fast because I needed income. I
Right.
needed to at least know the
Money's
direction
flowing
we were
out.
going. Yeah, 27 years old. It's not like I had massive savings and a nest egg built up at that point. So it was pretty quick. And Gary was still on a couple more weeks after I was there. So, things incorporated. We started to, think about our logo, find someone who could help create some kind of website, but it was really just starting. The internet was just
Yeah,
beginning.
I was
So
gonna
there
say that's
wasn't
like
really,
MySpace time, right?
yeah, it's like we barely had a fax machine type of stuff, right? So
Hmm.
it moved pretty fast. So I went and coordinated the communication with the four pillars, right? Finding the attorney, the insurance agent, the lawyer, and the accountant. It's like you got to get those in place. And luckily, I mean, we had a non-solicitation clause, so we couldn't reach out to other clients, but they quickly learned we were gone and found us.
Right.
And so
So
we
they found you.
had,
Isn't that the best?
yeah,
That's
so
great.
yeah, it was awesome. So I actually have nearby here a framed our first check and our first dollar that we ever made. And so it was in October, November, where we finally got our first gig. It was an $1,100 project, right? So just
So from
enough to
time
get
to
us going.
fire to time to first customer, how long was that?
Yeah, that was maybe 5 weeks or so.
That's
And
good.
that was enough to get something going. We had to quickly get, computers and, phone, and we were working out of our respective homes. And now we are back in our homes, right? As an
Yeah, right.
organization, um, but then we got in November, then we got our break. And that was, Gary had to do a contact with a major consumer packaged goods organization. And they contacted us and said, "Hey, we got a big benchmarking study. Can you guys handle?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." Uh, and it was a $50,000 project, right? And they said, we got a problem." I said, "Well, what's the problem?" They said, um, we got to get this paid before the end of our fiscal year. And I've said, okay, once again, what's the problem?
What's the problem?
You want me to
Send the
hop on a
money
plane
right
and get,
now.
you want me to come get the cash? What are you talking about? So, but that was our seed money then. I mean,
Yeah, that's great.
that got us, and we delivered and kicked ass, and they were a client for a while, but that gave us a chance to breathe, a little bit. And fortunately, we were able to keep investing back in the business. The first 3 years, it was 6 days a week, 20-hour days, get the work in, get it done, get it out the door.
Did you hire staff right away when you were starting?
Not until
company,
98.
Two of you.
Not until 1998. So it was 3 years of just the two of us.
Gotcha.
Building
Grinding
things,
away.
grinding away. That's where the first idea of understanding what sacrifice meant, right? I mean,
yeah.
Any entrepreneur tends to give up something, but do they do it unconsciously or intentionally? And that's part of the premise with the book I have. Back then, you just do it because you have to. It's survival.
Sure.
You do whatever you have to do, but you don't really realize that you give it up.
Yeah, speaking of sacrifices, I'm just realizing now that you did this while having a newborn baby. Did this take away a lot of time from your family? Did you see the baby's first steps and first words, and then what type of strain did that put on you?
Yeah, I definitely missed some of those formative years. I then had a daughter and then another son, all within 2 years apart there. So yeah, it definitely was some choices that had to be made. And as you know, every yes you say means you're saying no to something else. So there were plenty of those firsts that I did miss early on, and you always think that you'll make it up and you'll make it up. And, those trade-offs become pretty significant once you really start to get aware of them. Not unlike many entrepreneurs, right? So, in fact, there's some stories in my book that I talk about people who even leave their career so that one of the spouses could be there to see the first steps, to hear the first words, to be there in the formative years of their life. And it's worth then not having the extra income or, to them anyway. Others, maybe it's not worth it, right? A very individual element.
It depends on your needs, right? If you're really struggling, then 2 jobs is necessary. But at the end of the day, we also have to think, what are we working for? Are we working just to make numbers go up, or are we trying to enjoy this time on this earth that we're given?
Well, you touched on something really important, and I think in our 20s we don't have a clear sense of purpose, right? Yeah. And I find that when you have a clear sense of purpose, what you decide to sacrifice changes as life goes on. As you have kids, or as you have enough comfort with some things, you're willing to give up, money or title and whatever it might be to do the things that matter most to you at that time. Right? But we don't always know what that is.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of stories we could dive into or research of great companies, great executives, presidents, founders who eventually reach a point where it's like, I've made enough. I've done enough, and it's time to hand over the reins and spend more time with the family. And there's probably quite a few people that regret not spending more time with the family, and you can't bring those years back. There's one thing you can't buy back is those years and those moments.
100%. Well, that's why in my book, The Sacrifice Paradox, I talk about 3 kinds of sacrifices that I've observed in my interactions with people around the world, restaurants and hotels and airports and conferences. And, one is unconscious sacrifices, right? Those are the ones that just happen every day. We don't really think about it until it's too late, right? We don't even recognize it. Working later, one more email, and missing the kid's band concert, which, by the way, your kid doesn't care that you got your project done on time. They'll look out in the audience and realize they don't see you. Right. That's all they process, right? Then you have misguided sacrifices, right? So, which again, these are the ones that we think will lead to success, right? And these are the ones that you don't always realize that there's no return for it. They drain you of all your energy and all your thought processes with no meaningful return. But we do it, right? Yeah. Michael Porter, I don't know if you know that name, Michael Porter, Harvard Business School professor, author of many books. One's called Competitive Strategy. And in there, he talks about in strategy, you have to know what to say no to. And I think that's the same thing in our personal lives, and when making sacrifices. But a lot of people make short-term emotional decisions at the time they make a sacrifice, and later then, like you said, might regret it.
Yeah. I mean, we do every day for every meal. I don't need that.
Yeah.
I don't need those carbs, but I don't say no to that. If I did, I'd be a lot fitter.
Well, that's actually an example I share about before I share the third type of sacrifice. If you're trying to get healthier, do you choose the greasy burger or do you take the healthy salad? And eating it without the bun doesn't make it a whole lot better. So yeah, those are the choices.
I don't always argue with my guests, but I'm going to disagree with you there. And I think
On
everybody
the
should
bun.
check out the book Carnivore Code,
Yeah,
100%.
well,
But anyway,
no doubt there. I mean, I'm into eating protein, and but there are those that, oh, just don't eat the bun, and you're okay. It's like, well, what else you got on your plate?
sure. Well,
But yeah,
but you can also get
but
rid
no,
of those
you're
French fries.
yeah, exactly right. But then the third type of sacrifice is the intentional ones, right?
Mm,
These are the ones that really lead to true success. I find that when you could intentionally choose what to let go of, the whole question that really got me working on this is, what if the key to success isn't about doing more, but giving up the right things? We're
okay,
trained to, do more hustle, more commitment, more work, more hours, more money, more
that's the American
everything,
way.
right? More every, but what if you give up the right things, right? What does that mean? What does that make room for that matters more to you?
Hmm.
And that got me going with this whole idea,
Give some
and
examples. Give some examples.
yeah, sure. So, boy, I'll give you a series of them. You think back to even the decision to start the business, right? Knowing that there's some trade offs there right off the bat. But if you think about, I have a story that I worked 108 straight hours one time to deliver a project, right? And that's no friends, no
Yeah.
family, no sleep. It was just working through, and um, I'm pretty sure I saw unicorns galloping across my keyboard when I was done, but it was sacrificing comfort and food and sleep because I had to get a deliverable done, right? Was
Hmm.
it worth it? If you asked my sleep deprived brain, it would probably say yes, but would I do that again and not take more rest and breaks? Probably not.
Right.
I think you look at something like chess. I don't know if you play chess, right? But you make sacrifices in chess all the time, right? You give up, a rook to a few moves later capture a more powerful piece, the queen, right? And so I define sacrifice too, by the way, like Stephen Covey does, and that is, giving up something good for something better. It's not, killing an animal to please your deity. So that's not what I mean by
Okay.
sacrifices here. Um, but the
Yeah.
paradox part of it is the idea or the notion that giving up something that we value, right, is going to be a setback when in reality it can lead to something more fulfilling, right, and more peaceful, and more growth for you along the way. Think about again. Do you have an hour available as an example? Do you use it to work out? Or do you binge watch, your favorite TV show? You're going to watch, Suits or Yellowstone or The Bachelor or whatever you want to watch, and you take that course of action. Um, I think things like, um, going out with your friends, you're in college, like, do you go out into the yoga party toga party I would say
Well,
yes,
now
now,
it is yoga party, by the way.
yeah, yeah, now it is yoga, right? I got to get some yoga pants into here, but do you give up hanging out with your friends because you got to study for a big test, right? Or do you say, you know what, I'll take the B because I'm not going to miss that life experience that
Yeah,
I'm cranking
I'll
on
jump
there?
in here real quick. Living in Bali, used to stay at this. Well, not stay. Used to work at this great co-working place called Dojo. They went under during COVID, unfortunately, but they were great. They were great for meeting people. Not sure how much work got done there, but it was a really social environment. And I would see these young kids, younger than me, aka in their 20s, right? And they'd make a bunch of money in Australia. They would save up the money, and then they'd come live in Bali, and then they'd try to start a business, drop shipping business, that business, whatever, product, brand, anything. But it's just like you said, they're doing a whole bunch of work, and then Wednesday comes around, and their friends are inviting them. Hey, let's go to the lawn. Let's go dancing at the beach. Let's go dancing for sunset. Okay, okay, come on, just 2 beers, just 2 beers. Wake up the next morning with a raging hangover, can't get any work done on Thursday, so then they go to the beach, to try to use the sun and the waves to cure the hangover. Then they get to Friday, they feel fine, but it's Friday's already here. You might as well leave early and go
Start
to
up,
another
yeah.
party. And then you get back to Monday, and you just blown up your whole week by doing 2 beers on a Wednesday. You got half as much done as you should have, and you think you're not going to do it again, and then guess what? They do it again, and then 3 months, 6 months later, their business doesn't take off. They don't make any money, and they're back to Australia at the oil rig or the gold mine again.
And they
It happens.
blame everyone and everything except personal accountability for the choices that they made.
I think they know it's their fault. I don't think they blame other people, but
They
there
know
are
it,
people.
but do
Yes,
they?
there are a lot of people that do.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. But
yeah, yeah.
it's a funny thing. It happens, but I see it all the time. It's when I see young people come to Bali. I want to go Thailand. I want to go Bali. I want to go Vietnam, live cheaper, and start my business. I just give them the warning. set your working hours. Don't do it. Don't take any party invites on it, especially Wednesday. Wednesday is the most innocuous day. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do 2 beers on Wednesday. That turns into 5, that turns into shots, that turns into this and that. And then you get nothing done on Thursday, and then you don't want to work a full day on Friday, so you've blown up your whole week by doing 2 beers on Wednesday.
Well, again, it's all in the choices you make,
But it's little choices too, right? Like this little
Well,
choice.
again, those are the unconscious ones.
That big choice.
Absolutely. And that's why, some other examples just to share with you. There's 101 stories in my book, and they're 2-page stories with a reflection question at the end of every one of them. So it's almost like you could read one story a day and then just concentrate on that reflection question, which is actually probably the most valuable part of the book. It took me a while to come up with the right reflection questions for each one of those stories. But I think, there are situations where people get an opportunity to get a promotion or raise, and they have to move across the country or across the world. And that means, a spouse uprooting their life, the kids shifting around. I know people who had kids that have moved, 7 times in the first 8 years of school. Right. Well, there you go. So, and it's really tough on them, and constant adapting and adjusting. And some can do it, some can't. But at the time, are you making the decision? Why are you making those? And then there's others that say, yeah, I'm definitely going to do it, and here's why. And then there's others say, no, I don't want to put my family through that. And yeah, it'd be great to get an extra 30 grand a year, but I'm not gonna put my family through that. And so it just becomes. I created what I call a sacrifice framework. If you think about a 2x2, matrix, and the bottom is the impact on others, and on the side is, impact on yourself. And the top right, if you think about like will help or won't help, well, the left to right is, won't help or will help. And same thing, the top left is, will help. So the top right box, if it's going to help me, bud, and the sacrifice is going to help you, then make the sacrifice, right? Bottom left, if it's not going to help me, it's not going to help you, why? Don't do it. But most of us live in the gray zone. I might make a sacrifice that's going to help me, but it's not going to help you, bud. Or it won't help me, but my sacrifice will help you. So we have to think about the short and long-term consequences and benefits of those sacrifices. But a lot of people only think about the short term. They don't think about the longer-term impact, about either to somebody else or to yourself by making that sacrifice. Like you said, sometimes you regret it, right? And so what I'm trying to get people to do is just pause a moment before you jump right in there. I'll give you a really great example. So several months ago, we had one of our staff members come to me and said, hey, I need you to give me $10,000 more a year. I said, well, okay, let's talk a little bit about what incremental value will you be adding for $10,000? Nothing. I'm just going to do everything I'm doing now, but I need $10,000 more. I said, well, we got to talk a little bit about what the organization is going to receive by investing $10,000 more in you. It's like, well, I got another job offer. It's 10 grand more. I want to stay here, but I need 10 grand more. I said, are you considering the total compensation package though? Not just salary. Yeah. No, I looked at all that stuff. I need the money. I need 10 grand more. So well, I can't just give you 10 grand more. You're already at the high end of the band for your position. I mean, you're a good employee, not outstanding. You're still, so if that's what you have to do, then, I wish you well and good luck. And so they did leave. 3 months after that, they contacted somebody that was still here that they were close with saying, I made a mistake.
Hi, I'm Bud Leiser, host of the Time Compass Show. As an SMB leader, do you feel that recruiting drags on, salaries keep rising, and your team is already stretched thin? And what if your best employee quit today? You need a backup plan, my friend. Your local talent is scarce, and those costs keep rising. Did you try outsourcing and remote staffing before, and it didn't work? That's because they promised you associate-level talent, but secretly hire fresh graduates and sold them to learn on your dime. But not with us. We specialize in staffing professionals with over 5 years of real industry experience. Think about it. No more juniors means no more babysitting for you. Less time onboarding, less time training, and faster team integration. Imagine no additional tax forms, insurance forms, and labor compliance with your next hires. And did you know that staffing with us can save you 30% just on federal taxes and employee benefits? So what are you waiting for? Are you ready to start saving time and money? Then schedule a call today and let's become your top choice for top global talent. Just go to budleiser.com and click outsource. That's BUDLEISER.com.
Screwed up. And they go, why? What happened? Didn't you get your money? It's like, oh yeah, they gave me the money, but number one, I don't like my manager. 2, the culture here is horrible. 3, when I was at Proactive, I got a lot more days off. 'Cause you see, but in our company, you get anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks of vacation time. You get 11 holidays. You get 5 sick days. We shut down the business for the last 2 weeks of the year with pay. Now, they don't have to use their vacation time so that they could be with their friends and family and recharge, right? So
That's a lot of time off for an American
it's about
company. That's
7 to
great.
8 weeks for a privately held company. That's a lot of time to give off, right?
Yeah.
And they realized at their new company, they only had 3 holidays. They only got 2 weeks of vacation, all these things. And so like I tried to ask you to make sure you looked at the total compensation package, right? But they want the shiny thing, just the salary, which only worked out to be about like $650 more a month or whatever it was, net. So it's like that, but that was somebody making a short-term emotional decision and not thinking about the consequence of that decision, including, like I said, the softer things around the people that they work with they didn't like now at the
Oh,
new place.
100%. 100%. I culture fit is so important for both sides of the party. For you hiring the employee and for the employee fitting with the company. It's almost never worth a 5,000, 10,000 bump to take yourself out of a good environment to go someplace where you're going to hate them or they're going to hate you or it's not treated well. It's just not worth it. And I think a lot of young people are getting that as opposed to before. Our generation and older, I think you chase the dollar and every dollar counts. I think the younger generation, they're looking for that culture fit a lot more today. And they value it. They value like, do I feel good working here is more important than $5,000.
Yeah, does what I do have meaning? Is it contributing to something more grand? Like with our company, it fosters competition, which then translates to better products out there, better pricing usually, better access, all those different types of things. But it's interesting when you think about sacrifice. I go back to the company and we were trucking along, we're growing, right? And then, we had decided in 2007 that, wow, we're doing really well. We need more office space. I remember first in 98 when we got our first employee, but then we got our first really small office space. And I remember going there and getting it. And the landlord of the place, like, okay, I just need you to sign this form. I'm like, what is this? Like, well, you have to personally guarantee, the rent. I said, but we got the business. That's the first time I had someone actually laugh at me. Like, yeah, okay, you still have to guarantee your rent, right? So that's a quick lesson right there about, okay, I'm taking risk here of putting my house on the line, right? And other assets that if things go wrong, I'm still liable for this, right? So things are going well in 2007. We had built out a brand new office space at over 20,000 square foot, furnished it. It was beautiful. Put about $1 million into building this space out. And then what happens? 2008 and 9 financial collapse hits, right? What the hell are we going to do? Clients froze spending. Our cash is getting depleted. We now had a 10-year off.
That's a major hit on your industry and your business.
It trickles down because once they start freezing things, then they're all internally focused. And so they're all trying to survive. I mean, you had 100-year-old companies like Consolidated Freightways, a trunking company that went under, right? So we were, it's interesting because I think success and positive stuff, you project this image outside publicly, right? But internally, especially as a business owner, you deal with the costs privately, that are hitting you. And that then creates loneliness and it creates, this idea that the pressure you always have to be on, you always have to have all the answers, right? And that weighs on you. So this was hitting us. And meanwhile, again, we're personally liable for this 10-year office lease that was costing us, tens of thousands a month at this point for this space. And we're like, what do we do? I mean, receivables are low, cash is running out. And so we had to figure out a way out, right? And eventually we were able to not just sublet, but we got out of our lease entirely because our real estate broker found another association that was willing to renegotiate a whole new lease, right? So we had to go and find another space, a fraction of the size, negotiate rent and all that stuff. But
that's
man,
it right there, by the way,
it relieves so much pressure to not have that rent liability. But what a lot of people don't know about, and I'll be vulnerable and share here with you publicly, is we also spent about $750,000 to furnish this place. All kind of high-end office furniture stuff. It was spectacular. I had to leave like 80% of that stuff there to get this deal done for this new entity. So I still had 3 more years to pay on a note that I didn't even have the assets for anymore. Right. So And we paid that off in 2 years, actually, then. Like, we got after the financial crisis hit, I kinda referenced us like Forrest Gump, like, all these other players who didn't survive, we did. So it's like
Mm,
Forrest Gump, if you saw the movie, his
the
shrimping
shrimp boat.
boat's the only one that's left, and he's raking in all the shrimp, right? So
We just
we so
rewatched
then
that a week ago, by the way. My fiance had never seen that movie, so I showed it to her
oh
literally a
my
week
gosh, it's
ago.
so great. It's so great. So we started growing again, and then the 2012 recession hit. You get through
Mm.
that, start growing again, and then then
Before we
COVID
go too
hit.
much further, before we
Yeah,
go too much further,
yeah,
go back to the 2008 financial crisis. How many employees did you have? Did you have to let
yeah.
people go? And I know you
Well,
mentioned in your own words, it's lonely at the top. People don't, I don't think employees, managers, they don't get it as much as they think they might get it until you're in it. You don't get how lonely it is to be the CEO and be at the top, especially when things are going bad.
yeah, I mean, we had dozens of staff members. There's probably a quarter of them that we either had a furlough, asked to take a pay cut, or let go. And
Mm.
it was painful. I hate those decisions. I hate when I have to let one person go, unless it's for performance. I don't have any problem with that because they're usually given an opportunity to improve. They choose not to, then, that's on them. But this was a tough time. And they knew because you could
And it's a
see what was happening, right,
and it's a
around the
tough market,
world.
right? It's even worse because you know you're letting them go in a market that's going to be hard for them to find another job. That's like a double whammy.
And to your point earlier, you know everybody. You know
Mm.
their lives, they have kids, if they're someone in college, if they're trying to buy a house, if they have a parent that's ill. I mean, these stories. And it's
Yeah.
painful to make those because, as an owner, you're making sacrifice, you're making them all. Like, it's one thing, there are people out there who's like, well, I'm the last one that's going to get cut because I'm the only comes like, no, man, it's like people today will tell you when we have a tough year, I'm the first one that will adjust my salary and things because I don't take a big salary because my income really comes from profits. If there aren't any, then I'm the one that feels that more than anyone else. But you're right. When you have to let people go during a time when they're not going to right away be able to land something else, but you gotta think about the long-term stability of the business and the livelihoods of everybody else that is
Right.
there. But, yeah, I mean, I had a lot of, sleepless nights. I had a lot of, walking around outside in the rain trying to figure out because people expect you to have the answers. But when you've never faced a problem that severe, like, it does weigh on you, and there's only so many people you can be really honest with, certainly even inside the company about what you're feeling and what you're going through, right? Um, and that you
Yeah,
don't have
sure.
the answers.
And for those who don't get it, if you show too much weakness, employees they have a foot out the door, right? So as
Many of them
business
do.
owners, we're always putting on a face to our employees that everything's good, our clients everything's good, our investors everything's good, our bankers and anybody in the money trail. We have to put forth, it's not about lying, it's about putting your best foot forward all the time. And that takes a toll because it's hard.
Yeah. Well, I definitely, in our culture here at Proactive, we kind of refer to it as high performance, tough but fair, collaborative learning and fun, right? But accountability too. But you got to be transparent. As privately held, we don't get down to details on numbers and things, but we certainly are pretty transparent compared to a lot of privately held companies with our staff. And I don't have a problem being able to say, listen, these are the challenges we're facing right now, and here's the impact it's having on us, and here's what we're doing to fix it, though, right? Because
Mm.
otherwise, they'll fill the gaps in on their own, and sometimes create trouble that isn't there yet, right? It's like I'm just letting you know, we're not at that point where there's chaos or panic or anything like that, And I have found that when I've been more open, people actually appreciate that vulnerability, right? And they can respect then as an older what I am trading off. Not everybody. I mean, you have some that they don't care. It is about them and I totally get it, but the vast majority are like, what do you need from me? I mean, I got folks that have been with me for 25 years and 20 years and 18 years. And, they've been through these up and downs, but they've also seen the generous side, right? Where when we had great years, there's bonuses and there's, extra time off and trips that we'll give to people because we try to personalize that, right? My friend Matthew Kelly, he's written, I don't know, maybe 50 books, but many of them New York Times bestsellers. One of them is The Dream Manager. And in The Dream
Okay.
Manager, he talks about, and he applies it then to individuals and then that by extension applies to, a corporation. If you understand people's dreams, whether it is to retire by 50, whether it is to be a better dad, if it's to learn to play the piano or speak 5 languages, and you do things that help them achieve their dreams, then there's a different kind of loyalty and commitment that comes into play. So he talks
For
about
sure.
thinking about your dreams over the 0 to 1 year, 1 to 5, and 5 plus. And sometimes we don't get asked, like, what do you dream since we were 7 years old, right? So but when you can ask people as adults, like, what are your dreams? And if I can help you get there, right? That matters a lot. And so we actually at one point had a dream manager program, and we had a board up with people would show how they've accomplished and checked off parts of their dreams. His book has you write down 100 dreams, and it's hard to come up with 100, but across 12 different categories, whether it's financially, psychologically, physically, emotionally, whatever they are. But when you have the conversations with people, then it really humanizes work.
Hmm. That
You
sounds
know, and
cool.
I
I want
think,
to try that, writing down
yeah,
100 dreams. That
yeah,
does sound
yeah.
like a challenge, but a
Get
fun
the
one.
book.
And something
It's
I could
called The
do with my
Dream
spouse.
Manager. Yeah, it's only about that thick. It's pretty easy read. But yeah, it's a great idea to really. And then the cool thing is, then it's up to you to take the actions or don't take actions that are going to get you to the dreams. Like, it's not going to just happen overnight. You can't hope for it,
Hmm.
right?
Very, very cool. So, what were the strategies and what were the takeaways, even during this 2008 financial crisis, that you could share with other managers? Not that we're about to hit a crisis like that, but individually, companies can hit a crisis as well. And maybe the
Yeah.
strategies are kind of similar. What did you do during
Well,
that time? And what did you learn during that time that other leaders can learn from?
I think a couple of things. One is, ever since we started, we had a clear set of values, right? Our values are service, trust, ownership, continuous improvement, and quality. So I was always at peace with the decision we made if I knew we were upholding our values and our purpose, which is to enrich lives. So it could be our employees, it could be the clients, it could be partners, whatever we could do to make your life a little better, right? And I had peace of mind ultimately, not at the time, but ultimately with those tough decisions, if I knew we were upholding those values. So the first thing is making sure you have a clear purpose and a clear set of values, and you'll weigh those decisions against that. The second is around, I think, just being clear about what matters most. And sometimes survival and doing the things that aren't fun, that aren't popular, are necessary. And that's always the tough thing. People can't always understand the longer term picture unless you paint it out for them. And you see it's amplified more in companies that are small, right? You can see when John or Susie lose their job in a company like UPS, right? UPS right now is letting go of about 30,000 people. And that's on top of last year's layoffs. Why? Well, because they have opted strategically to kind of part ways with their number one revenue generating customer, Amazon, right? Because they don't want the high volume, low profit business anymore. Well, there's a trade-off with that strategy. Tens of thousands of people are losing their job before facilities are closing. That's a strategic choice they're making. Not popular, but the shareholders saw it as positive because their stock is starting to rise again, right? But those are tough decisions to think about, tens of thousands. I get upset when I have to let, a couple people go. It's hard to do that,
Well,
but
there's a Stalin quote that relates to this. Not that we should be quoting Stalin, but one death is a tragedy, a million is a statistic. At
yeah,
that
that's,
size of a
if you were to ask
company,
him, that's what, yeah.
at that size of a company, not founder, but the owners, the leaders, they're only going to know their inner circle. Everyone else is just a number, probably.
Yeah, and for small, medium-sized businesses, John Burroughs, who's a naturalist, once said, maybe he said it more than once, I don't know, leap in the net will appear. And
Okay.
I thought about that when we started the business, and I think about that often during the tough times. You could cite religious stuff if you're religious, you can fight, but for me, that one always stuck with me. Leap in the net will appear. And it always has, it always has. It shows up in different ways, but so those are just a couple of the ways of having clear purpose and values, focusing on what matters most, and then self-belief. Just, commit. I've made lots of great decisions. I've made lots of horrible decisions, right? But I've made
Me too.
decisions. You got to make decisions, and you learn as best you can from those. Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, I don't know if you know that name. He's, again, best-selling New York Times author. One of his most popular books is What Got You Here Won't Get You There. But he
I think
actually
I've heard
endorsed
that
my
title.
book.
Yeah, so he actually endorsed my book. He read the manuscript, gave me a great quote on the back cover. But one of his other quotes is, I might get it wrong, but hopefully I won't. It's, forgive others for who they are and forgive yourself for expecting them to be someone else.
Hmm.
And man, that really hit me because even as a decision maker on things, I have to forgive myself ultimately for having to make those, or if someone isn't performing the way they should, or they're acting quirky or whatever it is, it's like, that's who they are. So
Mm.
I can't expect somebody to be someone else, so I have to forgive
Especially when you're building a
myself if I
team.
expect that.
Well,
Yeah.
especially when you're building a team, you don't want everybody to be the same because that's going to have
No,
huge weaknesses. You need the bookworm, you need the consummate salesperson, you need the team builder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You need different roles. You can't just hire a bunch of clones.
100%. I think it's DeBono's got like 7 hats and he talks about, and then 5 dysfunctions of a team from Patrick Lencioni. And you have to have conflict. I think conflict's healthy. I tell people on my leadership teams, like, I don't want you to agree with me all the time on things. I don't, I was on the debate
Isn't
team
that
at school. I
funny?
went
Isn't that
to
funny when
Northern
you're
Illinois
starting
University.
when
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have
And
a
I
small
was on the
team and
debate
no one's
teams.
disagreeing with you and you're trying to be a good leader and you're trying to polish the business and make it better, but nobody's disagreeing with you and you're like, how do I even get to the point where they trust me to disagree with me enough?
Well, that's a great question, and it's because then they don't feel that there's a retaliation or something bad happens when they do. But I don't want sidebar and gossip happening. Like if you disagree, then I always tell people, listen, we have to debate and discuss. But once the decision's made, I expect everybody to get behind it. Then, right? It might end up being wrong, but
Yeah.
get behind it. We can have all the debate and discussion because there's several times my team has absolutely won the debate. It's like, you know what? I'll reflect on that and I'll come back and go, I'm glad you raised it because that wouldn't have
Hmm.
been the right path for us, right?
But you're right. Once you have a plan, the ball's going that way. So you better be supporting where the
Get
ball is
on board.
going. Don't be on the other side of the field.
Yeah. Doesn't mean you can't adjust and pivot, right?
Hmm.
As we saw a lot of our clients who did a lot of scenario planning exercises during COVID, right? Michael Porter talks about kind of that written strategy, and then there's the intended strategy and the actual. So, a lot of people have these intended strategy that's in their annual reports,
Mm.
but in practice, everybody was pivoting during COVID, right? They were all adjusting.
Of
And
course.
so, as long as you let people know what you're doing and what's going on, that's the key. Otherwise, they will fill in the blanks themselves, and they'll often be wrong.
Gotcha. I want to ask you a question here. Since you've been doing this for 30 years, how has your role as the leader changed? In other words, I'll give an example and you can just tell me if this is true or if yours is different. When a lot of companies start out, their leader needs to be the primary rainmaker, driving new business, getting new clients in the door. Then they might end up as more team building, managing, fixing systems, putting out fires. But then at a certain date later, it flips back to, let's call it 60, 80% of their time is just looking for new opportunities and driving more business. Is that the case for you, or how is yours different?
I think that describes a lot of things. I try in my own development areas to improve. I take a servant leadership mindset, meaning I'm there to help remove obstacles, get training and guidance to team members, set the vision, set the set of goals, making sure people get the resources they need to achieve their respective area of responsibility, right? Try to work on the business instead of in the business at this
Hmm.
stage. But absolutely, there's no, I will dive for the ball on anything. So I do have my own revenue goal. We have a business development team, but I'm a contributor to that. I will certainly help to write and review the proposals. I will certainly hop on a call to help pitch the business. I will help to close it, negotiate it wherever I can play a role to help. So that's been certainly one of the ways I think is moving from working in the business heavily to working on the business. That has evolved over time. I think trying to be a champion for the firm. So I do a lot of keynote speeches. I go to a lot of conferences. I do a lot of presentations. I write a lot and to get thought leadership content out
Do
there.
you find that the in-person conferences are still valuable? Is it a good ROI for your time and money in this new
Yes,
age that we're
overall,
in?
yes. There's some, yeah, absolutely. I think we're very selective about which ones we go to these days. Some are pretty lofty to attend or to sponsor. Some will go and just walk the floor and go to the session. Others will be an exhibitor and a sponsor, and a speaker. So they do vary, but I definitely find right now, especially people are tired of the remote environment, and so it's a great way to continue to press palms and to get to know people at
Okay.
a more
Is it
personal
making a bit of
level.
a comeback then?
I think in some areas it's never went away other than the couple months and years in COVID when it wasn't really allowed. But yeah, I think so. Just like the idea of people coming back into an office for some businesses
Yeah,
is
we're
a
seeing a lot of that.
comeback. Well, it's because these companies like pharmaceutical companies have, multi-billion-dollar buildings, so they want people in there. Now, I will tell you, like, we're remote. I have employees in 15, 16 states probably. I miss our headquarters. We have an office with just a few offices for people who need it, right? But I
Mhm.
miss the social aspect. I miss the easy popping in, "Hey, how was your weekend?" stuff, and we have to work harder to make sure people don't feel like they're on an island, right?
Right.
And that they feel engaged and part
What are some of your strategies for that? Do you do anything special to keep people
quarterly
engaged?
meetings. So we'll have like trivia games. We'll try to do things remotely. We have an all hands every quarter where we talk about how we're progressing, remind people of our strategy, outline what we're doing next, how we're progressing toward our goals. I host town halls as well several times a year where people can ask me whatever they want to ask about the business and be able to interact with each other. For the local folks here, we'll try to arrange a quarterly lunch, and some people who are within driving distance will come in from that. And to last year for our 30th celebration, we made it optional for anybody who wanted to come in. We flew them in, put them up at a hotel, and we had a nice dinner in celebrating, and everyone got nice little gifts. And
That's
so we
cool.
try to keep people connected as best we can.
It's important, right? That there's some camaraderie, there's some teamwork, there's some shared knowledge, not just sitting by yourself, filling out reports, sending it over, but still keeping the people inside the company engaged with each other so that new ideas pop up.
Yeah, I mean, that's where innovation comes from, and even
Mhm.
helping to refine existing processes. If you know a way to get something done in 7 steps that takes 10 and we could get the same or better result, let's try it out for a
Yeah,
while.
100%.
Yeah, so I think having those touch points of interaction, when as the owner of the company, I've always looked at making sacrifices to make sure that we can, do things that are better for our people, right? One of my stories is an executive of a fairly large size company who the board was ready to give them a big bonus, big raise. Like, I don't want it. Instead, these two facilities, these factories need new equipment. These
Mhm.
employees need like, give it to them, right? And people don't see that. It's not like they made that known, right? But those are the things that you pick up on when you start running into people at airports and conferences. I got so many stories. That's why in working with our publisher, I'm like, "Should I stop at 50?"
Yeah.
And we figured out we stopped at 101. He's like, that's like 101 domain." He's like, 101 is the right number of stories. Like, okay, so but whether you're an athlete, they got the Olympics going on, right? You see these people and the sacrifices to be an Olympian are
Oh,
enormous. No
no
friends,
life.
no family, 15 hours a day. It's just
And no diet
constant.
and no diet variety. They're on a very strict diet.
All of it, right? Because that's but they're intentionally choosing that, right? They know what they want, but then you have people who are artists and you have people who are executives, you have homemakers, you have students, you have teachers. Everybody makes sacrifices. So that's why I'm working on getting a TEDx talk soon on this because I
Nice.
want people to realize, if you could concentrate on what to give up and be intentional about that, you will have such greater peace and
Mm.
actually be more successful in the things that you double down on.
Tell me if you've heard this saying before. My father used to teach it to me all the time. You can have anything you want, but you can't have everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes back to, again, choosing no, right? The unconscious sacrifices involve saying yes to everything that comes your way. And you know what? And I feel bad for some of these students these days,
Mm.
high school students and college students, because they have an expectation that I got to take all these AP courses and I have to have all these extracurricular events. And it's like they get overwhelmed
Mm.
right now. And they don't know what to say no to, thinking, no, because then I can't get a 4.7. I can only get a 4.0 and if I don't take AP courses. But then they realize, but then their social life is compromised, right? And then they get
Mm.
all the way through high school or even college and realize I didn't make any friends.
Is
And
that
so,
happening a lot?
well, it is. And I think in college, as an example, people who have all these things going on, and I've spoken at a couple of universities about this idea. And I had students come up to me, some in tears, saying, "My gosh, like it's like almost like giving them permission that it's okay to not try to please everybody." It's
Mm.
like, please yourself. Don't worry about making your parents happy or your buddies happy or your teachers happy. It's like, what's gonna be meaningful to you? And then why are you
You know,
choosing things that isn't creating that?
yeah. I mean, if some listeners aren't getting this, remember that, David and I, we didn't grow up with social media in our face from day one, right? We didn't have to deal with, and you can laugh about it because we look at social media maybe as a place to go for funny videos, but it's also where young adults, teens, kids shame each other, right? If you do something, imagine growing up in an environment where if you do something wrong in class or act out or something, people are videotaping it and then sharing it, and then everybody knows and everybody has proof of it. That's got to do something to the psyche that's completely different than David and I grew up with. I can't imagine it. And so I like to hear about and think about. I don't maybe I don't like to hear about it, but I'm concerned to hear about what's going on with the youth. And what David is saying is, to me, very interesting. And yeah,
Well,
and
I think
because these are also your future employees, right? And then as you get older, these are your future caretakers. So, any more insights on this?
I think there's a lot of digital bullying that happens, and I think again, you could choose not to be on those platforms then, so you're not you don't have to observe it, right? And but I think that the people you hang around with, like, those are all choices that you
Mm.
make, right? And choosing not to have people in your life that are negative or that are jealous or that aren't happy for your success and supporting you and always trying to find fault, right? Or always trying to think like I wouldn't do it that way. Okay, that's you. What's that have to do with me? So yeah, I think people have these mindsets. They think it's cool if I razz somebody else. It's like there's nothing cool about that at all. It's like, is that a power trip for you? Does that make you feel better to insult somebody else? Or again, go back to the quote from Goldsmith, right? It's like you know people are who they are, and forgive them for being who they are. It's like that's who they are, and so it's unfortunate, but I do see a lot of folks go into depression and to have deep anxiety issues because the pressure, a lot of times from their inner circle, right? Or they're so competitive, they're so worried about watching how they compare like class ranks and all this kind of stuff. It's like, dude, just do your best. It's like
Right. And
they let so many things bother.
the expectations are just weird now, right? Like, 16-year-olds see so many other 16-year-olds who are CEOs and buying their first Ferrari, and they're just trying to get
Yeah,
through high
which
school.
isn't
And
the
it's
norm,
like,
you know.
yeah, yeah. And half of it's not even half, 90% of it is fake. It's leased for a week or rented for a week. There's so much fake shit, but they're just constantly being bombarded by it and seeing it. And some of it they know is fake and some of it falls through the
Yeah.
cracks. But
But
anyway,
again, what's meaningful to you, right? Was what
yeah.
matters.
But what's the future for your company? What are the trends that you're seeing, and what are you trying to change, shift, or do in the next 5 years as a company?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, there's always going to be competition, no matter what company. So we always have to provide unique insights and implications to our clients to help inform their decisions. But what's changing is how AI is disrupting the marketplace, right? A lot of clients are pulling things in house now because they can have tools available to them that are getting them some of these insights. Now, our challenge is to find the things that artificial intelligence can't do, right? So things like voice to customer research, so business to business, not so much consumers, but like if you buy a product from a manufacturer, let's say you're a distributor, or, a dealer or some sort, you're buying something, windows and doors, or you're buying whatever from a manufacturer, but only you can tell me how you feel about things. AI can't tell me that, right? Or if you are trying to, again, pressure test your strategy, you need to be able to role play the competition, have people bring the personality and the judgment and the context. Humans still do that. So for us, if we want pricing information, there's a lot of things you're not going to find in print about competitors' pricing. Maybe their list pricing, but not kind of transactional on the street kind of pricing. So our challenge is to use AI to enable certain parts of our process, some of the gathering, some of the analysis, but the human piece to formulate strategy, execute on strategy, is still very much critical to company success. So it's finding that right balance of how you augment, not necessarily automate. In our business, obviously some other industries, robotics and other things, they are replacing human jobs all the time.
Hmm.
Um, but for us, it's trying to figure out
Again, what's next? What's going to happen around the corner? So helping companies with early warning programs, right? What indicators are you able to track that tells you what future scenario may be emerging? And then help you to seize the opportunity or blunt the threat sooner before it is an actual threat, right?
Hi, I'm Bud Leiser, host of the Time Compass Show. As an SMB leader, do you feel that recruiting drags on, salaries keep rising, and your team is already stretched thin? And what if your best employee quit today? You need a backup plan, my friend. Your local talent is scarce, and those costs keep rising. Did you try outsourcing and remote staffing before, and it didn't work? That's because they promised you associate level talent, but secretly hire fresh graduates and sold them to learn on your dime. But not with us. We specialize in staffing professionals with over 5 years of real industry experience. Think about it. No more juniors means no more babysitting for you. Less time onboarding, less time training, and faster team integration. Imagine no additional tax forms, insurance forms, and labor compliance with your next hires. And did you know that staffing with us can save you 30% just on federal taxes and employee benefits? So what are you waiting for? Are you ready to start saving time and money? Then schedule a call today and let's become your top choice for top global talent. Just go to budleiser.com and click outsource. That's BUDLEISER.com.
So that's some of the things that we see starting to shape right now.
Since you're talking about AI, which AI tools are you using now, and what are your concerns for AI in the future moving forward?
Yeah, I think wide variety. Everything, of course, from like ChatGPT, but to Claude and Copilot and Perplexity. And then there's specific tools like visualization tools. So a lot of them, though, we're still experimenting with because they're not perfect yet by any means. And a lot of companies don't have clear AI strategy. So some executive says, "Oh, we're going to be using AI," and like, for what purpose? Like, what are we trying to
Right.
accomplish, right? What I'm concerned about is the ethical dilemmas, of how people are using AI. I'm concerned still about accuracy of what's in print, the lack of verification and validation by humans. And I'm also concerned about people stopping to think. I've been writing for a long time, right? So sometimes every now and then someone like, "Did you actually write that article?" It's like, of course I wrote that article. What are you talking about? I've been writing for 30 years, so I've written 3 best-selling books. Yeah, I wrote it, and it's like, so I'm concerned about people who aren't using it to maybe buff and polish their writing or maybe rephrase something. They're going to send
Right.
a note to an employee maybe or to a client. It's like, "Hey, can you refine this and take the edgy tone out," right? Or something. Like, but the critical
I've done that.
thinking,
I've done that.
yeah. Yeah, it's like, but the critical thinking, if you're using these tools to think for you, that's a problem. That scares the hell out.
I forget who talked about this on the show, but they were talking about that this is becoming a real problem at the higher ends of companies. I thought it was going to be the more associate level worker using AI to do the research, using AI to send the email. But he was seriously seeing and concerned about, managers basically just letting
100%.
AI make the decisions and turning off their brain.
Yeah, I think it could be a great, powerful tool to do a review of what you have written or to offer suggestions to make something you have created better. I think it's great for that. But to do the
Mhm.
original thinking, it won't be very original because it's not you. It's pulling from other content that's already
Mhm.
out there. So learning the prompts becomes very important for these tools to get the right set of answers.
I think it was Kevin Sebastian. If it's not, I apologize to my previous guest, who said that AI will seriously replace everyone below average because AI will be, by definition, the average result. So if you ask it to do something, come up with a strategy, it's going to take all of the information out there, combine it, and you're going to get an average result.
It's very, very possible. I always tell people, when this first really started, people would ask me a lot in our profession, are we going to lose our jobs? And I would tell people, AI is not the threat. You're not going to lose your job to AI. It's leadership's perception of what AI can do, right? And we have to change the narrative. We have to, as in our business, I've been writing a lot lately about we have to influence decisions, not just inform them, right? We can't just provide background reading. We have to actually be persuasive and shape the decisions and play a different role, which might mean new skills that you have to develop as a human, right? But we have to influence those decisions now and it just, give some background knowledge.
Right. You have to have a real discourse with your AI companion. Just
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
not just ask it, tell it, not just let it tell you what to do.
Yeah, but on the personal side, it can be helpful if you're going to if you're going to be a best man, yeah, you can plug a bunch of stuff about your buddy who's getting married, and it's like, hey, help me craft a 2-minute speech, and then you work back and forth with it a little bit, right? That's okay, but
Are there any non LLMs, aka not the chatbots, that you're working into the workflow of your business? I think you mentioned something about visualization and stuff
yeah, I
like
mean,
that.
you have different tools that help with presentations, Prezi, and the Tableau's been out there for a little while, but yeah, I think the bigger area is taking larger sets of data or content and then trying to say, hey, help me comb out the top 5 themes from all this different. Let's say you do 50 qualitative interviews. It's a great way to be able to, have it quickly filter and synthesize that. So manually, yeah, that would take a long time and you might miss something, right? Like you said, when we started our business, the internet didn't exist. So when we did research, we'd have to call the target company if they were public, request an annual report, wait 2 weeks for it to show up in the mail, flip to the back pages to the executives, and that's who you started calling. There were no databases, there were no websites. Remember microfilm and microfiche at the library? You'd have to go look up stuff,
Yeah,
right?
I remember
So,
that.
so I mean, things have evolved a little bit since then.
That's fantastic.
But, I think ultimately, my advice to your listeners here is a couple final thoughts is to really think about, like, do an inventory of the kind of sacrifices that you're making, in life. And I think really, think about, what am I already giving up that I'm really not realizing? Is it worth it? And what can I intentionally, stop doing to really focus and make space for what matters most? And if
Hmm.
you just focus on those things. Sometimes I've had people say, you know what, man, I realize I've missed way too much of my kid's life, or I'm not giving my spouse anywhere near the time. When I got divorced in 2007, we were building the office. Same time I was on a board of directors at a college. Same time I was at a board on an association. Like I had to exit some of those other things to focus more, right? But that actually, in many ways, made me a better dad. So again, you talk about giving up something, right? So I was giving up spending every day around my kids because I knew that wouldn't happen like every other mom or dad, right? When you divorce. And so then when I was with my kids on the days, Tuesdays and Thursdays or every other weekend type, I was with them, right?
Right,
Sometimes they
present.
do work, but even when we were all in the same house, I'd be off in my office working most of the
Hmm.
time. So it
As
forced
we
me
do.
to be a better dad and be engaged. And so that actually, again, the paradox of giving up that I certainly gave up money and some other things, but it made me a better dad, in my opinion. I don't know. I would hope they would say the same thing. Maybe not. I don't know, but I'm biased.
Kids are pretty flexible, but if you talk to most people, if they can be honest about what they regret, it's not spending more time with family and protecting those relationships. Because you can always make another dollar someplace else. And what's another dollar but a number on a screen until you
Yeah.
spend it?
It's all of it. Like choosing to go on the vacation, because you need a break, but going, oh my God, but it's $3,000. Like, okay, but
You're going to
you're gonna
spend that
spend
money
you're gonna
sooner or
spend
later
on something.
someplace else.
And living in the
That
now. I've seen
reminds
too many
me.
people lose their life early, for
Yeah.
multiple reasons. It's like, man, tomorrow's never promised, you
Yeah,
know.
that's true. And talking about budgeting, I remember working at the hardware store and people would complain. I mean, they like to do that in the lunchroom, but they complain about grocery prices. And you think, yeah, these grocery prices are getting expensive and they got to take care of their kids. Then you hear about on Friday night they went out and bought a round of drinks for everybody. Well, geez, I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
the grocery prices are that bad compared to the amount of money you're blowing on Friday night. So
Well,
it's all about
great point.
sacrifices.
Again, if one of your dreams is I want to tour Europe for 3 weeks, right? Great, and then you're spending $10 on a latte from a Cheeto. I don't even know whatever stupid names they're called. I don't drink coffee, so I don't know. If you're
Right.
spending, it's like if you just save that
Yeah. Buy
$10
the
every
small,
day,
not the
you're gonna have three, four
large.
thousand dollars, right?
Yeah, but especially don't go out and blow $200 in a single night for
Yeah,
nothing that you can bring home, right? Like
right. I
that
mean,
two
I
hundred
drink.
bucks is gone, and you're just
Yeah,
rented some fun, and you're literally pissing it away in a few
yeah.
hours.
Like I drink bourbon. I have a good collection of bourbon here at the house. And it's like I can't see going out when I go out for dinner and spending $70 on a couple of bourbons. Like why?
Yeah,
I don't need
yeah,
it that badly.
yep. Well, fantastic. It's been great having you on the show, David. And
Oh,
we'll
thank you.
have a link to your Amazon, a link for the book for those that want to purchase the book. But besides that, how can people stay in touch with you? Give us your socials, your website, And any parting words?
Yeah, sure. So I think if you want to learn more about the book, the sacrificeparadox.com, my email's on there as well, for those that are looking for, keynote speakers or anything like that. Proactiveworldwide.com is our company name. So those that have research related needs. Otherwise, if you do pick up the book, and I'd love to hear your story, I love to hear how it's affected your life. I had really successful wealth manager contact me not too long ago and asked if I could carve out some time to talk. I said, sure. And it was about the book. And they said, I've been struggling because I work all these hours and I probably could retire now, but because I missed a lot of time out with my daughters. And I'm like, well, it sounds like you already have your answer.
Yeah.
But they applied the sacrifice paradox, the sacrifice framework to think about, is it worth it now anymore at this stage in life? Like you said, some people just say enough's enough, and
Hmm.
but people get into comparing and all that stuff. So I guess my parting word is, just choose wisely, choose meaningfully. It's okay to not have to impress people, causing you to take on more things than your body, your mind, can handle. Don't worry about that. And I think just focusing on what matters, which can change over time. There are times in
And
life
it
where,
should.
yeah,
Yeah, it
work
should change over time.
matters and it might be more important at the moment, right? Other
Yeah.
times, when you have a sick parent or a child that needs you to help go to college or whatever, then you have to choose that. And the message for any company leaders out there is, when people are then on vacation, let them be on vacation, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you want them to bust ass when they're at work and during those hours to be highly productive. Fantastic. That's fair. But then when they're not, let them not.
Mm.
Not, oh, I just need you to dial into this call for an hour. Just like, no.
Yeah, well, it's also that the half hour you got to be ready before the call. You're interrupting
The
anything else
debrief
that you could have
after.
planned before and
Yeah.
after that. Yeah,
Yeah. So
100%.
we can't go to Disney now for another 2 hours because I have to be here for this 9:30 call.
Yes,
It's crazy.
exactly.
But I appreciate the opportunity to be a guest and to share some of the messaging. And I hope it resonates with a lot of folks that are going through some of those same challenges. And, as long as you focus on your purpose and choosing what matters most to you and eliminate the things that really, are causing more distress than happiness or fulfillment, you choose that. You're the one that makes the yes or no choice.
Good parting words. Thank you so much. It's been great having you on the show.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
If you're a business, church, school, or nonprofit paying over $90,000 a year in utilities, listen up. One of our clients thought their bills were quote unquote normal until we uncovered $136,000 in refunds they were owed because of mistakes, misclassifications, and missed rebates across their electricity, sewer, gas, and trash. Now imagine what an extra $100,000 could do for your organization. New equipment, new staff, new programs, or simply boosting your bottom line. But there's a deadline. We can only seek refunds for the last 36 months. Every month you wait is money you permanently lose. So schedule your call today at budleiser.com. budleiser.com. Well, thank you. You've been listening to the Time Compass Show with Bud Leiser. I hope our compass has shown you a better way forward. Now, if you've enjoyed this episode, I dare you not to like and not to subscribe. And I definitely double dare you not to share this episode with 2 of your friends who you know that would love this show. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, cheers.